Let's venture into the Cosmere. G'day to all you lovely people and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kathy and today I want to talk about this. The Final Empire, the first book in the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. Okay, now I have only ever read Sanderson in relation to The Wheel of Time and I liked his writing, so I thought it was time to try one of his own books, one of his own stories. And of course, if you're on YouTube, you can't help but hear about the Mistborn series, about the Cosmere, because I think he has quite a few books that take place in this universe. The Final Empire is the first novel that Sanderson has ever written. Prior to this, I think he wrote Elantris, which I believe is a novella. As I'm intending to talk about some spoilers, I'm going to split this video into three like usual. There's going to be a without spoilers section, with spoilers, and a summary and score for the book at the end. And I'm only going to be scoring The Final Empire because this is the book I'm reviewing. I suspect that my opinion of The Final Empire is going to be very unpopular, but we all have different tastes in books. That's how I see it. What I like, you may hate, and vice versa. A summary of the plot for this book involves a world where ash has been falling for 1,000 years, I think, and the Scar, and I don't know if I pronounced that right, are a class, a race of people who are basically enslaved by the Lord Ruler and the nobles. And for 1,000 years, they have tried to rebel against the Lord Ruler and failed dismally. When we start the book, a new uprising is being planned by a criminal mastermind, as the blurb describes him, Calcia, and a small group of people. They are looking to overthrow the Lord Ruler and free the Scar. Mistborn refers to a class of people who are able to wield magic. The magic is called allomancy, which uses metals to push and pull. Calcia, the leader of this small group planning this rebellion, is also a Mistborn, capable of using allomancy. He also meets a young street urchin called Finn, who seems to also have the abilities of a Mistborn. I think that tells you sufficiently what this book is about. Okay, now I wanted to talk about the writing style, about the plotting, the characters, etc. Let's start off with the writing style. I know this is Sanderson's first book. I'll be honest, I did not like the writing style. It seemed very simplistic to me. It reminded me far too much of YA fiction. And I will say it again, I am not a fan of YA fiction. And that is no reflection on YA fiction, that is simply my taste in books. You have to remember, I'm an older reader. I have been reading fantasy for a long time, and YA does not appeal to me. I like sophisticated writing usually. This book, however, seemed to be geared to a younger audience, not someone my age. And I think the writing reflects that. I also think that perhaps it was simply because this is his first book. But I found that there was far too much exposition and yet not enough description of different things. It seemed that Sanderson was intent on showing us everything through the dialogue, which got a little tiresome after a while. Not enough is left for us to deduce or to our own imagination. It is all explained. And in my opinion, too much was explained in this book anyway. I also felt that in many ways his language was very simple and straightforward, which makes it a very easy read, but lacked depth or complexity. Whilst there isn't anything wrong with simple language, I like to feel I'm reading something a bit more mature. This felt a little immature to me. There certainly wasn't a very wide vocabulary used. This might be considered nitpicking. It is just my observations of the writing style. And of course, let's keep in mind, this is his first book. So I'm assuming in future books he does improve. Because I know I really did like his writing in The Wheel of Time, and it didn't read the same as that. This read as much more simple for me. And I have to say, there is very little description. It's almost non-existent, whereas we have a lot of dialogue where there is a lot of exposition. I didn't really enjoy that part. The characters. There are several characters that we see throughout the book, the main ones being Calcia and Vin. Calcia was likeable. He did seem charming. But we are also kind of hit over the head with how charming he can be. And that bothers me. I want to make my own conclusions about the characters. I don't need to be told what they are like. I should be able to work that out as I read the book. But he was probably my favourite character, and he was better drawn than some of the others. Vin. Vin is the young girl who also has magical abilities. I could not stand Vin. Yeah, I'll confess it. I did not like her at all. Not at the beginning and not at the end. At the beginning, it seemed she was terrified of everything, of being attacked, about protecting herself, about finding escape routes, and honestly, I got so tired of it. I got it after the first few times, but it seemed that the author was intent to underscoring it over and over and over again. And her change, her kind of lowering her guard, I didn't completely buy it. The truth is, I just found her really dull and boring. She did not have anything that appealed to me. And it wasn't because of her age. It was just that she seemed quite often spiritless. Yeah, she certainly didn't come across as a strong character to me. Perhaps I'm being unfair, but there was very little about this character that appealed to me, that I even found admirable. And the other characters in the book, I really felt were very superficially drawn. Oh, well, we knew one was a bit of a comedian, one was always talking about philosophy, and then there was one who seemed the sober one, who always got the job done. It just seemed they were all very superficially drawn. I really don't know much about who they are, except those few characteristics that I've mentioned. They definitely needed to be fleshed out more, and I don't think that they were. I can't even remember their names, which I think says a lot too. In my opinion, the superficial nature of these characters did detract from the book for me. The plot, however, was very well done, and I think this is one of Sanderson's strengths. He laid the groundwork very well earlier in the book that you couldn't always predict what was going to happen, though sometimes it seemed quite obvious what was going to occur. I did like the overall plot, and my understanding is that it gets even better in the future books. Sanderson did a good job in plotting out this book, and the pacing seemed overall very even, though sometimes it did seem to me to drag a little, especially when we spent a bit of time with Vin. I need to talk about the magical system because I know that this is what people really loved about this series. This magical system seems quite detailed. It is called, I think, allomancy, which is the use of different metals to do different things. When I was reading it, I thought, this is unique. This isn't something I've read before. But after a while, I got a bit tired of hearing this push, pull, push, pull. I'll be honest, I did. However, overall, the magical system is very well drawn. It is fleshed out, so you have a good grasp of how magic works in this world. And I did like it, but for me, that is just one aspect of a fantasy story. The world, on the other hand, is not fleshed out at all. I have a very vague idea what this world is like. And I think that was something that the book lacked, was a better description of this world. Yes, there might be a few different races, but I still don't know how the Scar differs so substantially from the nobles. That I think needed to be explored more, as well as the physical world itself. I didn't get a great grasp of this ash, though I kept reading about them having to clean it up. And there's certainly not a lot of history told us as to how this world came about, what started this falling of ash, what the mist is. I think all these things are probably explained in future books though. My conclusion regarding the world was that it could just be anywhere. It just didn't seem unique or different to even our own world. And I think that's because there wasn't enough description about this world. Now I'm going to briefly mention a few things I liked and a few things I didn't like. I did like the magical system because it was unique and it was different, though I did get tired of hearing it described throughout the book. By the end of it, I was like, yeah, I already know how that works. I'm moving on. I always like rebellions by an oppressed group because I love underdogs and I'm always a supporter of underdogs. So I did love that aspect of it. And let's be honest, the Scar are treated horribly in this book. And yet I found it a little hard to swallow that the Scar, who far outnumber their masters, haven't risen up and just killed them all. Yes, we have inquisitors in this world, like in most worlds, who are very powerful, but still, there's thousands and thousands of Scar to one of these nobles. You would think they could overrun them before now. Calcia is definitely the best character in this book, if you ask me. He was very appealing, very charming, though sometimes predictable. But I did like him, I can't deny it. And I liked that it was an easy read, because it is. The language is so simplistic, I think, that this is a book that teenagers could easily read. Paradoxically, something I didn't like is that the language was so simple. It did seem a little too much geared towards a younger audience, not adults as such. More YA fiction than adult fiction. Now I wanted to talk about some spoilers, so let's jump into the spoiler parts. As far as I know, several times people have tried to get into the city to either steal something or kill the Lord Ruler. I know Calcia tried twice and couldn't, and yet Vin could. Sorry, I did not buy that. No, I really didn't. She did not come across as a very intelligent person, and yet she seemed to be able to get in so easily. That didn't ring true for me at all. I have to confess it's been a couple of months since I've read this, so some of the details are fading. Perhaps I'm wrong about that. If I was, you can correct me in the comments. Calcia becoming a martyr. I predicted that very early on in the book. It seemed obvious to me that something like that was required in order to get all the Scar in the city to rise up. The romance. Okay, no, I didn't like the romance at all. I didn't find it believable at all. And frankly, her finding him attractive when he's sitting there reading a book and completely ignoring her was just, oh my God, yeah. Sorry, but I don't buy this at all. I really don't. He just seemed like, oh, I don't know, a rebellious teen. And yet he's appointed king of this world. I didn't buy that either. That just did not work for me at all. He didn't seem to have that much support with the nobility to be the ruler of this world. And he was young, and sure, he might have some progressive ideas, but I'm fairly certain most of the nobles wouldn't have wanted to elect him king, or appoint him king, I should say. Yeah, that didn't really ring true for me. That just seemed very convenient because, he is Vin's love interest. I did, however, like how Calcia pitted one house against the other. That was kind of cool. The Lord Ruler. We were given hints that the Lord Ruler was not the writer of this history that we see at the beginning of each chapter, because that certainly was not in line with the character we have been told about throughout the book. So it wasn't a complete shock that the Lord Ruler had killed the author of this history. To be honest, this Lord Ruler, he was always like this shadow that we have heard so much about, but when we finally met him, he was a little underwhelming for me. It was no surprise to me that he was going to kill Calcia. That was kind of obvious from the beginning that it was going to lead to a showdown between them. But, yeah, I'm sorry, Vin working out how to defeat him, yeah, don't buy it. No, sorry. Yeah, it just didn't ring true for me at all. I did, however, like that Marsh was an inquisitor. That was kind of cool and unexpected. That I did not predict. I do think that Sanderson's strength lies in his plotting, not in his characters, unfortunately. Okay, let's summarize. I did not like the final Empire. I'll confess that at about 20% into the book, I seriously considered not finishing it because I wasn't really enjoying it. And I usually finish everything I read. Usually. It's very rare for me to not finish a book. The only reason I continued is because I know how popular it is, and I thought I must be missing something. Perhaps as I get further into it, I will enjoy it more. I didn't. No, I did not enjoy this book. It was a real effort to finish. I felt it was more geared towards a much younger audience. As an adult, it didn't appeal to me. I thought it was very simplistic writing. The magic system, whilst interesting and different, wasn't enough to overcome the other problems I had with this book, like the characters and not having a more fleshed out world. And perhaps that balances the book for most people, but it doesn't work for me. I tend to like characters, and other than Calcia, who I liked but didn't love, I really didn't like many of the others, and I certainly didn't like Vin. I have read that many people suggest if you don't like Mistborn, you should try The Well of Kings. To be honest, I don't know if I want to finish this series, and yet I own them because I thought I would love it. I certainly liked how Sanderson wrote the Wheel of Time books. And at the moment, I have no inclination to finish this series. It does not appeal to me all that much. I'm not that interested in how it concludes. Though from things I've read online, apparently the way the plot is resolved at the end is very satisfying and unpredictable. That, unfortunately, hasn't hooked me enough to make me want to finish it. So I'm going to ask any of you who have read the Mistborn trilogy, whether I should continue and why I should continue with this. Or should I just skip ahead to the Well of Kings? I would not recommend this to older readers, though I'm sure there may be some who will enjoy it. But several people I know who are, I don't know, in their 30s or more did not like this book. So I don't think I'm alone in that. As for a score for this book, I score out of 10 and I have been considering this at length. I was thinking of giving a 4 out of 10, which means I won't read it again. But I think that might be a bit unfair. So I'm going to give it 5 out of 10. Because I might read it again if I like the other books in the series. If I ever read the other books in the series. Anyway, well, that is all I have for you guys today. You know I would love to hear your opinions on The Final Empire and what you thought of my view of it. And you can let me know down in the comments, or you can contact me on Instagram. I'd also really like to know if you think I should finish the series. But let's be honest, they're not small books. And I just don't know if I want to waste my time on something I may not enjoy. Well, thank you all very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, then you can do the usual. You can like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.